when someone shows up. So it's just going to be going to the live stream now. And I'll put the link in the chat that you can share to your own feeds if you want when someone shows up. So it's just going to be going to the live stream now. There we go.
To say, how many of us are in here? Oh, there's Gail. Hi, Gail.
Hey, Jeff.
So you're off my screen.
Oh.
Yeah, mine too.
I need to make it wider.
Oh. Yeah.
So, Andrew, is this going to come up on the other link that you gave to us? Is that where we're going to see it? Okay.
Yeah, so I'm posting both the YouTube link as well as this one here. And then, so we're probably going to see people starting to come in on Facebook, but I'm just going to set it up on our page here. So this is all very low tech to anybody that's watching now as we get into this.
So Andrew, did you get an email from Margaret Gallagher, CBC lady? Yeah.
I did, yes. Yeah.
She wanted to talk about the park, and I was basically trying to find a way to make her have to drive slowly through Tunstall Bay just to get an idea of the traffic problems.
Yeah.
So, but then she said, "Oh, I'm going to be on the 820 ferry if it's on time." I just laughed. I actually sent her a link to the current conditions and a vessel tracking thing just so she can know where she is. So, but I figure that's a good way to illustrate some of the traffic issues.
Yep.
You know, she's coming over here and she gets overloaded and delayed and
All right, it's not it's running directly into the post, so I'm just fixing that now. And I'll clean that up after we are done. Okay, so we got 2 people watching now. All right, so let's get started then. So this is the new candidate Zoom. We've got somebody from Camp Bowen who wants to join. I wonder if that's one of our candidates. Hopefully it's just one of the candidates. Is that one of the candidates connecting from Camp Bowen?
Might be Alex, hey?
yeah, it was one of the same.
Oh, yeah. It's probably Alex. We'll let Alex get online. So folks that are watching, we're just waiting for a couple more of the candidates to get online. Richard is on the ferry right now, or he's had some ferry delays. So he's be joining us a bit late. Same with Judy Geddy. So we might see them when they're here. So hopefully Alex's audio will join soon. So this event is for the new candidates. We thought that it might be nice to get together and get all the new candidates online, or as many of them as we possibly could. Nicole unfortunately couldn't make it tonight. She had to send her regrets because she is leading a choir practice. But to get to see some of our faces and feel some of our energy, we're going to be probably doing a smattering of questions, some of them less formal and more fun. We've been through a whole gamut of candidates events the last week and a half or so, where we got hit on all the major issues. And this event is really, I think, maybe to play cleanup on a couple of issues that haven't been hit, but also just to relax and have some fun and maybe get to know us personally. So the way that we did it is all of the candidates are prepped with a question that they brought, and then we have a number from the community, questions from the community as well, that we got. Some of them are pretty deep and pretty detailed. For the sake of brevity, we're going to try and keep this event to about an hour and 15 minutes. And we are going to have a real high-tech timer of my clock, my phone clock here to keep us on time. So let's try and keep it to a minute so that we're not here at an event that's running on until midnight, if that works for everybody. Yep.
All good.
Deal. I think our live stream's working. We've got 8 people online right now. Folks that are here on YouTube in the chat, please feel free. If you've got comments, I'll be watching the chat. Maybe we can bring some of those in, but we'll go from there. So, as a first question, maybe let's just start with something a bit personal, because we haven't had too many personal questions so far. I mean, I'm not like deeply personal. We're not going to get into our life stories or anything crazy like that. But maybe an interesting question would be, what would your friends say that your best qualities were? Starting 1 minute each. And because Tim Wake is in my top left corner, I'm going to ask you to go first. What would your friends say your best qualities are?
That I'm a good listener, caring, conscientious, hardworking. And I think they'd say that. And I'm a good, that I was a good, this is what I heard from some of my friends on bowling, that I'm a good candidate because I've had some experience.
Right on. And so because I only want to hold this process really loosely, you get to pick the next person to go.
Okay, well, Robin.
My friends, I think, most often describe me as loyal. I check in with them a lot. I seek their advice. They seek mine. We cover all the contentious issues in our life and aren't afraid to go there. I think most of my friends here on the island and all my best friends think that I am pretty dedicated, almost obsessed with housing issues and caring about Bowen Island.
Right on.
And I will pick Gail next.
My friends would say that loyalty is certainly there. The things I think I hear most often are practical. Someone has a lot of common sense, resourceful, very much in terms of keeping an eye on achieving the objective and working along those lines to bring people in so that everybody's pulling in the same direction. Those are things that people say that I'm reasonably good at, and kind of gaining consensus. Getting people to concentrate on what we have in common. So yeah, that's probably about it. Can't go too much further. I don't normally pick my friends' brains. That's for Facebook. So I'm going to go with John for next. John Turner.
Oh, well, thank you, Gail.
Sorry, did I get you in the mid?
Yeah, no, I actually don't like to talk about myself, so that's
Yeah,
But-
fair enough. Yeah, I hear you.
The things people have said about me is that I'm unflappable. I don't freak out about problems. I just deal with them. I've also been a friend's made a comment about me. Says if you ask me a question, he'll get the perfect answer. Might take 3 weeks, but he'll get the perfect answer. So that pretty much sums me up. I don't fly off the handle. So. Anyways, let's go with the other John then.
Well, I'd start with, I don't have any friends. But if I did, no, I would say that the things that people have told me I have, and my wife would be one of my friends who tells me this. So I'm reliable, extremely reliable. I'm consistent. I'm loyal. I've got a lot of personal integrity. I'm not afraid to face problems, and I'm absolutely unafraid to admit when I've made a mistake and try and figure out why that was made and learn from it and move forward. So those are, I think if I could live up to those qualities that people have said about me, I'd be pretty pleased with myself. Andrew.
Oh, me. What would people say about me? Probably that I'm enthusiastic, that I've got some energy. I like to push the boundaries of experience and try and figure out how to do things in new and different and interesting ways. That I'm caring. Good dad, I think, is one, and probably one of the ones that I'm most proud of. And that when I find a cause, I really drive towards it. And I see Alex is still connecting to audio. I hope you're able to join us there, Alex, but please let us know when you do. So maybe let's go to Robin for the first question.
Okay. I had a question that sort of touches on a few things and that I haven't heard have heard come up. What would you do if you were elected to council to improve representation with municipal consultation processes and on municipal committees?
Are you pointing that at anyone, or are we
Yeah.
gonna?
Well, I think that Andrew's idea was to kind of do a round.
Yeah.
Round table.
So should I direct to the next person, Andrew, or is that how you want to?
Yeah, sure. You can pick the
Maybe
first.
Tim
first-
Wake is over next to me here.
Lucky Tim.
Poor Tim, after the all candidates debate, he got the switched questions
He's in the middle for me.
through the all candidates. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm used to this. So improving consultation and communication between council and our community and with
Mainly representation. So who gets to how all those processes could be improved with better representation.
Well, I think it comes down to facilitation of the meeting. I think representation should be the responsibility of the individuals. I don't see a process where we're picking representatives of each neighborhood or demographic or whatever. But I think we need to have events, which we've had in the past, but if they're well facilitated, we have lots of tables, lots of discussion, people are taking notes, and there's a whole group experience, but a lot of the dialogue and exchanges are at tables with perhaps a facilitator at the table as well. And then the results are carefully recorded.
Cool. And you get to pick the next person.
Okay, Andrew, I mean, let's just go in a circle.
Can you hit back the question for me? I'm not sure if you saw what happened, but my audio and video went haywire right in the middle of when you were.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What would you do if you were elected to improve representation with municipal consultation processes and on municipal committees?
Gotcha. So it's like a question of diversity, like bringing in more diversity and more perspectives. Okay.
Right.
So for me in that one, I think we need to find new ways of reaching people. So I've been talking a lot about systemic barriers to participation in democracy in this election so far. And we've seen things like it's just difficult for working parents to participate on committees. It's difficult sometimes to find the information that you're looking for beyond a one-page spread in the undercurrent, or a posting in an obscure place at the municipal website. So I think the municipality needs to take a much more active approach in bringing information to the people in a bunch of different ways. Like we saw how wonderful Don Schaefer's podcast was, for example. I think there's other ways to bring more audio and visual stuff and leverage our social media technologies to solicit communication and get feedback in ways that doesn't need people to like physically show up, so anybody can participate. And John Saunders.
I think starting point is I mean, it starts with the people that you want to have in there as the demographic that's engaging themselves. They have to be engaged. Like we can't rope people in. We can make ourselves. The council needs to make itself available and offer opportunities for people to get engaged. And they're either going to choose to or they're not. Based on what I've seen in Bowen so far, they're going to choose to. But we could do that, like having a quarterly. Not a town hall, because those can get unruly, but just a casual sit down somewhere with 2 or 3 councillors and anybody that wants to come, and the mayor or something along those lines. We're unable to, an island this size, you can actually do face to face. You can get out and meet people here. It's not like I care about the people on a national level and where you can't actually go out and meet people. But here, you can go talk to them. You can engage them that way. And I think we need to allow people to get engaged, encourage them to get engaged by as many ways as we possibly can. I see your clock beeping me.
Yeah.
Robin. Oh, sorry, that was your question.
That was my question.
Yeah, she
Okay,
can.
well, John Turner. Or did you? Wait a minute. You should have to answer your own question. No, John.
Well,
Go
I
ahead.
could. I could at the end.
Yeah, Robin knows the answer already. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, again, my style is low key. I mean, some of the things I've banded around is like doing a coffee clatch after every council meeting. Just have people show up at the Muni and sit in a boardroom and have coffee. I mean, a lot of the problems we have are, because they turn a lot of consultations turn acrimonious pretty quickly, and that doesn't work for anybody. So if you can keep it lower key, I think you get more information across. I mean, you mentioned committees. Apparently, Bowen has the largest number of committees of any municipality in the Lower Mainland. And I actually heard the municipality had to hire somebody to manage all the committees. So we might want to reduce the number of committees, make them a little more targeted. That might help get people involved. I mean, I'm a big fan of asking people the wrong question at the right times. I mean, if there's a committee on housing, ask them something about community lands or the park. I mean, it's a way to solicit opinions that you wouldn't normally get. And I'll basically talk your ear off. So that's my strategy for getting information. But again, a nice low key approach I think is good.
Well, you're out of minute, John.
Okay, well, I was just going to say, and keep doors open in the municipal hall so people can walk in and have a coffee or use the bathroom. So, anyways, Gail, over to you.
Yeah, I there's kind of coming in at the end now. All the good stuff has been taken. It's always the way. But no, I think I think the problem with sometimes with too many, well, there's so many avenues of information that a lot of it gets lost, and often only the people who are already engaged are the ones who are going to seek out that information, and to try to figure out how to bring everybody in. I think sometimes we may have to resort to some low tech fallbacks, like something to like Judy's Saturday meetings, like John's suggestions for coffee meetings. I think those little NERC kiosks are underutilized at this point because they're new. That we can put little summaries of the week's activities. That would be an easy thing to do to tack that up, and then along with that, include the links or a QR code or something for people that might kind of go, oh, I want to know about that, and just something that they could grab there. And I think that might bring a few more people in. People that are just stopping by to get their mail says, oh yeah, that is something I'm interested in. So I think those are we have to kind of look at all those options, I think. And I think that's everybody, isn't it? I don't think there's anybody else.
Alex, are you here, Alex?
Muted if he is.
I don't see him.
Actually,
Hey there,
just jump in.
Andrew.
Yes, Alex is here.
Yeah, technology was going a bit haywire on me for audio. I didn't even bother with video today because of it.
No worries.
Got the audio going, so I'll participate this way. So I think a lot of great ideas have been thrown around. As Gail said, it's hard coming in at the end, but I wanted to go back to something that you said there, Andrew, and that was people connecting in different ways and making sure that there's a way for everybody to connect. And I think that's can't be overstated. Whether it's because they're working parents, like you said, or somebody with a disability who's homebound, or a senior who might have a harder time because they don't drive on Bowen. It really is about connecting people in a way that works for them. Just like we all have different learning styles in education, we all have different ways to engage, and that'd be silly to just to not look into those and make it more available.
Great. And Robin, maybe your choice. So do you want to answer your own question, or you can pass it on to the next candidate for their question?
Well, just quickly, I agree. If I combine all the answers, I agree with all those options. I think it is, I think John touched on this about committees function and the number of committees. I think they could be made a little more effective and targeted. And I think there should be encouragement to have people participate in committee meetings and even council meetings or council options for participation that bring people in a little more. And I think that's pretty essential going forward because I think a lot of committees are currently at the municipal level are underrepresented for, housing is a good one. The numbers are small, and people who actively participate in committee processes or council processes, the numbers that come to council meetings, unless there's a big contentious issue, are kind of small. So I think we could work on that using some of the tools and options you guys have all suggested.
Great. And you get to pick the next person to drop a question.
I won't pick Tim. How about Gail?
Okay.
Because you were at the end, so
Right. Yes. Well,
you and Alex.
I kind of, I haven't, this was sort of a one that I haven't really thought a bunch, but it just occurred to me. So I think I'm just going to throw it out there. I just wondered what everybody's in their perfect world, how they would see the health center. expand? What do you want to see most in the health center? What, as far as the health center, assuming it ever does get permits and everything, what's the most important thing to you about having a health center at long last? Let's go with Tim.
So the first thing is, I think we need to have some kind of emergency room for situations where somebody, it's not a good idea to just transport them off island. There's not time, it's too serious. So we need some kind of emergency room. And it could be a dual purpose room because it's not going to get, I don't think, a huge amount of traffic. And then I wonder about things like X-ray, CT scan. I know there's lots of diagnostic tools, so I would hope we wouldn't get them all at once probably, but maybe we could have a plan to get them as time goes on. And then just some a good staff of doctors and nurses who can handle situations, both by appointment, but also drop in, if you will.
Cool.
Oh, do I pick somebody?
Yeah, I think you could pass it on. Yeah.
Okay, so I'll pick John Turner.
Okay. Well, it's funny. Urgent care is, I think, the term that gets used these days. And last time I had to go in to see a doctor, but well, I was cutting firewood and needed a couple stitches, so it would have been nice to stay on the island to do that. And it reminded me of meeting. It's a guy who lived around the corner from us. He had kids that are a little bit older than mine, and when he moved here, he bought a home stitching kit. So basically, the curved needles and some suturing twine or whatever it is, because he figured he was going to need it, and it was too hard to get to the island or to the mainland. So, I mean, to me, urgent care for stitches, casts, actually antibiotics in a pinch, like to get a prescription for kids with an ear infection. I mean, that was a common one growing up, or with my kids growing up. I kind of like the idea of the X-rays and CT scans. I mean, the equipment, I think you can get funding for. It's the operators that are difficult. So, but theoretically, if we have the equipment, maybe someone will come. And it could become Bowen Island Medical Diagnostic Imaging. That would be cool.
A new A&E show with, like, a reality meta, small island ER.
Well, actually, if you need an MRI, it's usually faster to go to Whistler. So if we've got the equipment here, who knows? Maybe I mean, it's getting a radiologist to run that stuff, but maybe that would make sense.
One day a week.
Yeah. I was going to pass it over to Alex.
It's muted.
Oh, he's back.
There we go. Sorry. So what I would like to see is the as I believe it was Tim who mentioned the walk-in appointments. I think that's something that a lot of people, you need something in a pinch, whether it be a prescription for antibiotics or something else, and you do have to go to the mainland for that. I think the nearest walk-in that I'm aware of is in Caulfield, and so that would be probably the kind of the top, I think, that would be on my list. The imaging and diagnostics equipment, while expensive, I agree that I believe the funding is out there, and that might be a solvable problem with the right approach. So that would be cool. The other thing is, I think mental health would be another great one to have in there, because we can never have enough of that. I mean, that's said the province over, but and the country over, but I think that would be a great addition. So that's what I'll add to the conversation so far.
And you get to pick the next person to answer the question, Alex.
I'm going to pick Robin.
I would agree that urgent care is a big one on the list. And I think because of our healthcare situation in general in the province, looking at who ends up in ERs for the longest period, it's often seniors. And part of that is because they can't access their needs in their own communities. And it's, so I think that would be part of the picture too. Making it more, the healthcare center available to seniors, because that's population that needs looking out for here on the island. Also, I think the idea of the healthcare center is a team approach. I think having a group of different practitioners who can, look after your healthcare needs is a really team approach, good idea. Anything from all the urgent care needs we just described. So yeah, I think it's an important addition to healthcare on the island. And I'll pick John Saunders. You're left.
I wonder if there's anything about healthcare that hasn't been covered here. So
Right.
you pretty much nailed everything there over the course of that. I think one thing that's going to be awesome is possibly the capability for people to actually have a family doctor now, that they don't have to drive into the city to see. There's tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people in the province don't have a doctor. And if we can have some of those people that live here not have to have that issue, that'll be a huge step forward, I think, because I know there's a lot of them. And also I think it's partly because, we all age out. I think one of the things that you just said there, Robin, about for seniors having some ability to provide more for them. And I'm thinking in terms of some kind of a clinic for preventive, like an educational clinic in there for preventive, not necessarily medicine, but preventive lifestyle, to help you age properly or easier or better, or something on those lines. So, and use it as an educational thing as well, aside from all the many other good ideas that have already been tossed out there. Andrew.
Something that strikes me about Bowen and the health center is that the health center kind of completes the medical landscape on Bowen. So Bowen has a tremendous community of healers to begin with. We have massage therapists and chiropractors and kinesiologists and physical therapists and psychologists and counselors already on the island. And what I like about the health center, and I don't know if this is a direction that the Health Center Foundation wants to go in, but just to Robin's point of providing some integrated care in a way that is small island, is community-based, and can advocate for an individual in really interesting and holistic ways that leverage some of that, the community resources that we have. I think, the work that's been done on the Caring Center or with the Caring Circle already has been tremendous. And I'm really looking forward to the leadership that the Health Center is going to provide our healers on the island, as well as, not have us need to go off the island for emergencies. And I think that's it. So Gail, you get to pick the next question asker.
The next question asker, let's go with John Turner. I'm going to keep bugging John.
Okay. Actually, the question I was going to go with is, how can we improve transparency, and what does that really mean? And it's basically to combat the issues that one of the big issues is a lack of transparency, or a perceived lack of transparency, but I don't believe people really know what that is. So I'm just curious to get your thoughts on it. So Gail, I'm going to go back to you.
Ironically, that transparency is so hard to see. But but yeah, that is difficult because there are things like to get things done, sometimes you have to not necessarily close the doors, but we all know that situation where, you get way more done if you close the door and turn off the phone. And so sometimes there is that real drive to want to, just shut everybody out and, to find that balance, I guess, to me, the transparency. I mean, in a perfect world, you have the doors open, all meetings would be live. And yet, I can't say that that's always what I'm going to be voting for. I think we have to go back to the representation and the bringing people in and making sure people know what we're talking about. Not so much necessarily that they're involved in every little step of the way, because nothing would ever get done. But I think we have to shift from transparency, like 100% transparency, into these kind of ideas we were talking about in the previous question about, summarizing informal meetings and that kind of thing. That's really all I can sort of think about it. So it's a bit vague, but that's the best I can do. Let's go with John Saunders.
So this is I think I've got dozens of questions about this over the course of the past couple of weeks from different people. I think that the biggest thing we can do, and there's a lot of good ideas out there, but the biggest thing we do is get out there and be with people. Like, can't just go to a meeting every 2 weeks and then say, go watch the minutes.
Right.
Anybody who's on council or the mayor, anybody representing the island has to go out, go to events, get your face out there and meet people and talk to them, and be visible. And everybody has to do it. It can't be 2 or 3 people on council doing it. You can't do that in a federal election or provincial election. There's too many people, but we can do it here. And that's something that absolutely should happen. We've talked about a dashboard as a meaningful and easy way for people to access information, find out what's going on, as opposed to being told, well, if you just go watch the minutes or go watch the meeting on Zoom, you can get it all. They don't want to do that. They're boring. Meetings are boring. So let's really get out. People the council would have to get out and meet people, have quarterly, sit downs at the Snug or at at Artisan Village or something, and have people come along and just a casual afternoon and sit and chat like that. That's a big one-on-one. You got to start with one-on-one and build from there. Tim.
So transparency is a tough one, and I think part of it is people taking responsibility to educate themselves as much as they can. A lot of the questions that I got, for example, over the course of the last few weeks about the multi-use trail across the island, there are answers there. On the website in the transportation plan. Having said that, it looks like it hasn't been updated much since 2018 or 2019. So the idea of a dashboard and getting current information, measuring results, having a yardstick of some sort that tracks the progress and as compared with the plan. And some explanation of why things aren't going better or why they are going well. But I agree with John. One-on-one is really good, or a few-on-one. I've been really impressed with Judy Getty's little meetings. They sometimes they end up just talking about baking. But there's also some really good discussions and questions, and often.
You're at a minute, Tim.
Okay, the best part of that is often at the end. Okay, who's left here? Robin, have you?
I think recently I read an explanation of political language trends, and the word transparency for most people is a difficult thing to find meaning, and what does that mean? And I heard it explained now more as accountability. And I think that's important in our community. I think that's a part of explaining what actions you're taking based on what the community asks you to do, and how you are responsible as leadership in those decision-making processes. And I think, like everyone has suggested, being one-on-one and explaining your options and the actions you've taken is important. And so Andrew?
Okay. So let me set my own timer here. Transparency. So I think there's a couple of pieces for me around transparency. One is around just real honest and courageous communication, particularly on issues that are difficult or might not want to be reported on, because I think we did see a number of those in the last couple of terms, and that requires a taking of accountability. And but kind of where I look to it in the future is that part of transparency is really related to communication and explanation. So I don't think it's enough to say, go look at the minutes, or go look at this report, or go look at this master plan, because I think it's the job of leadership and governance to make that engaging and make that digestible in ways that the public can take in, whether it's in the form of a video or a podcast, or you do something fun like a YouTube post game show of a post council with the CAO to discuss what happened and condense things in a way that are digestible for the community. And Alex, I don't think we've heard from Alex yet.
Oh, he's muted.
You're on mute if you can hear us, Alex. Oh, maybe he'll come back. Might be having tech issues. So John, do you want to?
Yeah, sure. I mean, my belief is it's a person-to-person business. So it's getting down and dirty and talking to people. I mean, watching videos of council meetings, it takes a certain kind of person to be able to do that. I don't have the intestinal fortitude. I know Judy does, and she loves that kind of stuff. But I mean, I keep throwing around a few ideas. I mean, accountability to me, the way you can build that or build trust is through specific reasons for making decisions. So that's something I think would help us if. There's always going to be unfortunate decisions or uncomfortable decisions, but if you can give a specific reason for them, I think that helps. I mean, some of the bizarre ideas I've had were, would having a scrutineer in council meetings help? Like just have basically a dedicated person to come in and watch the meetings and basically report on what's going on. Not a council meter. Not a council member, but just someone from the community at large. If there's an in-camera meeting, just have them sit there. If there's anything personal, they have to be discreet about that. But anyways, that's just some ideas I've had. But again, it's a personal business. We need to be able to relate that information accurately, timely. I'm not a big fan of the web presence stuff. I get more out of talking to people. And likewise, there's a lot of stuff on the web that isn't updated. I mean, I took a look for the budget this month, I can't remember what it was, and it was passed in May, but not actually posted yet.
Yep. Yeah.
Why don't we go to Andrew for your question?
Oh, yeah, I opened with a fun question, but I'll pull one from that we had from the community here, which I think is relevant. If I can sort out my computer. And it was one because it struck me that in all of our all candidates events, we didn't hear anything about. So I'm a terrible multitasker, so I can't move things around and talk at the same time. But we didn't hear anything about children, youth, and families So there wasn't a specific direct question, if you remember, on kids, youth, and families on the island, and maybe by extension seniors as well. So like targeted to generally generational lifespan. And there was a question here about childcare specifically, about how to get more daycare in. But maybe I'll look at that a bit more broadly, and we can hit it in 1 minute. So my question would sound something like, when looking at the growing demographic of kids and teens and working families on the island, what opportunities do you think there are to provide programs and services to that group? And I will start with John Saunders.
As it happens, I was looking at the Bowen Island Undercurrent today, and I was looking at the community events thing, and there was chess and French, and there was actually a few more things than I would have thought available. But there wasn't a whole lot of stuff specifically directed as programs at necessarily kids or seniors or anything along those lines. So I think you've got a rec department, and I think, and there's good facilities on this island, or pretty decent facilities. And I think we can probably program those better and develop a few programs that, get some involvement from kids. I mean, one of the great things about here is for young kids is they're pretty free range, which is awesome. You don't see that in the city, I guarantee you. But if we could develop more programs directed, specifically at them, that the parents, you talked to, or somebody mentioned earlier, well, parents can't get to things at 5 o'clock and whatnot. Let's have things for kids to play with and to join and to take part, and just expand some of the things that are already out there, like some of those things I mentioned in the undercurrent, and kind of build from that. So we need to use the rec department to build these programs. Robin.
Well, I think we have traditionally had not maybe enough, but programs for the younger children and school-age children through the rec programs or school programs or daycare programs. I think one group that often gets less attention is the teen young adult group. And I know the Teen Center has, tried to fill in some of that, but I think we definitely need more, as we've kind of alluded to with the health center, mental health, programs around addiction, and youth targeted young adult programming. Thanks.
Amazing, Robin. I saw you scramble when the timer came up. That was
No problem. Gail.
Yeah, there's lots of opportunities. One thing I was wondering, and because my son is no longer in grade school age, I'm out of the loop in terms of what young families or what families with kids in school are looking for. And I just wondered if is it time we started talking about keeping the high school kids on the island? Like, is it time for a school to be here? I mean, there's pros and cons to that. Certainly, is it good to keep them locked on the school? Will they go crazy? Are there enough activities, sports and stuff? They'll still have to go off the island. But I just wondered if that would be something that would be worth consulting with the families, whether there would be enough interest in that, whether, that could be an option for like a public school. Because when you look at the 7:30 and the 3:30 boats, it's like there's a whole school's worth of kids on that boat. So maybe that's something people would be interested in, and it would be a hub too for the other activities that would be there too. So who we got? Tim? I don't think we haven't done Tim yet. I don't think. Tim.
Yeah. I think you hit on something important there, Gail, about asking. I think we need to consult the families. Now, I'm saying that I haven't had school-age kids while I've been on the island, but if we could get the Parks and Rec and some of the teachers together, and either have a meeting with parents or send a letter out, and get some suggestions as to what they feel is missing. And I think we've hit on a number of them here. Certainly mental health is one that has a stigma to it, and it requires some encouragement and people feeling welcome and safe and comfortable speaking speaking up, participating. Okay, who hasn't gone yet?
I think everybody's.
I
John?
Yeah, I haven't. Was going to say Alex yet, but yeah. And kids on the island, it's always been a challenge. I mean, I've got 4 kids. They all went, they're all raised on the island. Some of them went to the teen center. Some of them didn't. I mean, the ones that went there got a lot out of it. They like Friday nights. They got heavily into playing music, things like that. I'm actually a big fan of them going off the island when they're they go off in grade 8 now. It gives them a bit of freedom, but it's a little bit of structured freedom. So I always thought that was good. I think they hated it, taking the ferry every day. But and that's sort of how IPS grew up as well. It was to allow kids to stay on the island for a couple more years before they went off to high school. I mean, rec programs are a big. I mean, they're a big thing for younger kids. I know that. I know when my kids were sort of young teens, tweens, I guess, that they got into mountain biking and things like that, and that was led by a lot of community members, not teachers in the schools, things like that. And that was great on the island because they could get out and do stuff. And but it gets to be a challenge. I mean, I know there's always talk about swimming pools and hockey rinks, or ice rinks, but they're always kibosh because of cost. I mean, I grew up as a swimmer, so I'd like a pool. I think it'd be great, but I don't think it'll ever happen. Okay, time to go. We're getting close. Okay. Yeah, I'll just pass it over to Alex if he's still here.
Yeah, he's still muted.
Can you hear us, Alex?
Hey, folks, I'm gonna have to cut out. I'm sorry, but I've got couple of phone calls to make before it gets too late. So thank you for that, and we'll see you around. Hopefully we'll be doing all kinds of one-on-one in the near future.
Sure.
Thanks, Gail.
Take
Bye,
care.
Gail.
Yeah.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.
All right. Oh, I get to.
Yeah, that was your question.
The next question, John Saunders.
So I'm not going to go with those ones I threw you this morning, but so at the outset, Andrew asked us, what are 3 things your friends might say about you? So I'll just kind of turn that a little bit. If you were to be elected to council or as mayor, as the case may be, what are 3 qualities that you would really like to see in the people you're going to be working with? And I'll lead off because it makes it easier for me to do it that way. I'd want to see a level of integrity that is unimpeachable. You tell the truth, you tell it all the time, and you move forward from that. I'd want to see critical thinking, like an ability to take in information and make rational decisions based on that information. And I want to see leadership. And what I mean by leadership isn't bang on the table, take charge, but engagement with a team and an ability to work with the team and guide them, but not pull them.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll go to Tim.
Okay, so I think it's really important to have the team work well together. A council that's split on a lot of things and there's quite a divide on things is going to have a very tough time getting things done. So I think listening more than speaking, respecting each other, keeping the temperature, keeping things calm, not having people get too excited, raising voices, that kind of thing. And the ability to have a different position, but understand that some kind of compromise is going to have to be met, and starting to suggest the win-win on any given issue. Okay, Andrew?
That is a great question. So I think one of the things that I would love to see on a council is just like an orientation towards openness and compassion and curiosity. I think those three things kind of go together in forming the atmosphere that you might have around a council table, and it naturally breeds empathy and respect. The second is the kind of like a tension between being knowledgeable and being humble, because the things that a council is asked to reflect on, nobody can be an expert in all of them. And a lot of times I think a council needs to be a quick study on some of the issues that come up, and be humble enough to say, you know, I don't necessarily know, but let's go out and find some good information about that. And that's, you know, an onus on, you know, reading the reports to going out and reading some of the background knowledge. And a last one is just like an adherence to process and rigor. I think is you know, having a process and rigor that you follow, what all of this stuff is built on. I will go to John Turner.
Oh, okay. Just make it some notes. So, well, I'll start off then. Say, actually, one of the questions I have been asked, it's a very telling question, because it's how do decisions get made, and it's the question, or the decisions that are questionable. And I mean, I basically had to say I have no idea. And it's some of the things that, you know, one of the big ones is, why did the community center get okayed or funded? There were some options in there that just they didn't really make sense, and there were alternatives apparently. Anyway, so the best thing I can say is the decisions are being made possibly because of a too rigid adherence to structure. So sort of to Andrew's point, you know, I wouldn't be afraid to bend the rules a little bit if it gets a better decision made. But to do that, you have to have everybody basically not playing cover your ass politics, just being open with ideas. I mean, they have to be open to criticism as well, but it's got to be respectful criticism. And that just speaks to openness and things like that. I mean, it's funny. I think there needs to be a bit of contention in the council just to make sure all ideas are out there. But it's got to be, again, it's got to be managed, you know, respectfully. And you know, basically that's the big job of mayor, is actually to foster that kind of, you know, mild confrontation, just to bring out ideas. People have to feel comfortable to bring them up and not feel they're going to be shouted down. So you have to create an atmosphere that allows information to flow. That's a huge thing.
Yeah.
And you know, again, I come from a process-oriented background, and one of my concerns is that the councils in the past have been too rigid in adhering to process, and that process has just grown up, you know, in the time we've been a municipality. So maybe we need to, you know, move some of the goalposts for doing those things. And I think Maureen would, you know, not agree with that. I think she's very, very comfortable with the process as it is today. But,
all right, you're at a minute.
About a minute. Okay. How about Robin?
Well, I would agree to everything everyone else has mentioned. I think for me, another, on top of empathetic reasoning, and on top of integrity, and on top of respectful, fair process, is remembering who you're working for, and remembering why you're in the position you're in, because that, at the end of the day, that really is why we're doing this, to serve the community and do it in a collaborative, team effective way. And is Alex?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure what happened to Alex's.
Yeah, he's still muted though.
I'm here.
Oh, he's back.
Oh, he's here.
Alex.
Having some audio issues, still staying connected here. So it's, but I am here. So I think the ideas and that have been going around are, great. But what I would like to add to it myself is just seeing a lot of seeing council really be able to take that step back and look at the processes that it uses and see if there's any room for improvement there. I agree that sometimes we can kind of make some of the processes looser, but also what in the process is working and what is not working, and where can we make adjustments to that as well. So I'll add that for myself. Thank you. And is there someone that we're missing for this question?
No.
Well, Gail left.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. So do you have a question for the group, Alex?
I do. And this one is, what, if you were elected, would you do to ensure that the island continues on a path of greater accessibility, inclusion, and diversity?
And you get to pick the first person to answer that question.
All right. I think I'm going to go with John Saunders.
I think the first thing I would do is sit down with yourself and a number of other people and get a better understanding what those needs are. Because frankly, I have not encountered a whole lot of difficulty along those lines in my life. And so I don't have a lot of personal experience with it. So what I would want to do is, because I think I have a fair bit of empathy and understanding, what I'd want to do is get a grasp of what are the big problems. Like I understand, some of them are pretty straightforward about whether you can, mobility issues are pretty straightforward, and we would need to address that. And a lot of things building codes address in any event for new development. But I think the biggest thing is for those of us that don't experience some of those problems is to get a better understanding of it and get some empathy. Then maybe we can move forward in a much better way. Robin.
Well, I do have a lot of personal experience with access for people with disabilities within my family and within the disability population in general. And that's been part of my work experience and in my life. So, and I think it kind of goes back to representation, which for me is really important, is allowing increased participation with and by people with disabilities in decision-making processes around community support, around housing. I was on a task force with Inclusion BC and CLBC on accessible housing and how to make that more of a better option in our community. So, yeah. Tim.
Well, I think we really need to find out from people who are experiencing the problems exactly where they are and what they are. I think Alex would probably be a good person to not only provide us with that, but also to recommend people maybe he knows in the community. I think it's pretty clear that there are all kinds of parts of the community that somebody in in a wheelchair or a scooter is not going to be able to access. They can't go down a rocky trail. So I guess the other thing is we all get around in cars, and I think if we could get ourselves out of the cars and help people maybe with transportation on transit, that would help. Okay, who hasn't gone yet? Andrew?
I might take this question a little bit in the diversity, equity, and inclusion piece that you brought up, Alex, because I think that where we're going in the island is going to require the ability of council, and then by extension staff, and our community as well, to feel into perspectives that aren't necessarily represented on the island. And that's what it takes to provide some inclusion, whether we're talking about physical access or systemic access and systemic barriers to things like housing or participation in democracy, or the way that we are looking at things like gender equity and all kinds of different sociological issues that I think have been really, really present and highlighted in our society in the last little bit. Reconciliation is another one, and taking a reconciliation lens to some of our diversity DEI pieces, I think, is going to be super important. But ultimately, for me, it's a matter of continuously and consciously looking and ensuring that we're looking through the perspectives of the underrepresented. And I will send it over to John Turner.
Okay. Yeah, I guess I'm like John Saunders. I just I don't really know that much about it. I mean, beyond mobility access for things like wheelchairs and scooters. I just making a few notes saying, just the roads we have here they're incredibly steep. I mean, they're steep for cars and bicycles. I mean, it's got to be a barrier to for transportation. I mean, that sort of starts speaking about transit or improving transit. So I mean, from my perspective, it would be more just I need to know more about it. But by all means, if there's something we can do, I'll be happy to support it. So. That was all for me.
Maybe back over to you, Alex.
Fantastic, thank you, and I really do appreciate all the open dialogue on this, and the ability to admit, that one maybe doesn't have as much familiarity with it. I chose the question in part because I'm part of the disability community here on Bowen, but also because I just thought it was going to be one of those questions that is going to be facing our community over the next few years, especially as seniors age up. And as we look at solving some of the other problems, it's definitely going to be one of those integral parts to the transportation question, the housing question. And I really think one piece of it is better dialogue between the municipality and persons with disabilities through a accessibility committee of some description. I know we touched earlier on there being the most committees anywhere in the province, but an accessibility committee and a diversity and inclusion committee are probably some that either we need engagement across all the committees, which would be ideal, or a dedicated committee that can look at those questions through those lenses. I found it very interesting to have the inclusion go as far reaching as reconciliation, gender equity, and not just the physical access, which is never without a doubt an important component. But it was interesting to see the definition of inclusion and diversity really kind of being taken further than that as well. So it's I want to thank all the current municipal staff and council for working to push accessibility, inclusion, and diversity forward, and looking forward to working with all of you to make that happen, either if elected or outside of the election as well. Sorry, outside of council as well. Thank you. And is there someone who has not had a chance to ask a question yet?
I haven't.
All right, why don't you, do you want to go next?
Okay, I've got a simpler, shorter question, I hope. And that is, if we had a regular, reliable water taxi service to West Vancouver and downtown, would you leave your car at home most of the time? And what would be the barriers to that if you see a problem with it? And let's start with Robin.
That's a good question. We have had those foot passenger ferries in the past, and I've utilized them to mainly go downtown to participate in cultural events and that kind of thing. As a retired person, I don't go into Vancouver that often now, so that service wouldn't be something I might utilize as much as, say, an employed commuter. And I know if I was a commuter, and could access my work situation through those ferries, I would use them a lot. John Saunders.
I'd do it in a heartbeat. I hate driving through the city, and this is one of the worst cities in the world to drive in. But no question about it. The limitations, of course, are transit on the other side. Like, so you're, as you just said, Rob, if you're going downtown and you can access work from those water taxis, awesome. And if you can take one of the few buses that are pretty efficient in the city, that's fine too, when you get off in Cole Harbour or Granville or wherever it is. But typically, if I'm going down, if I'm going to the city, it's because I'm on my way out to Abbotsford to see my dad, or I'm going to Ladner to see my mother-in-law or something. So it doesn't work that way. But for keeping it within the narrow confines of places you can get to easily, I would use it every day, like without question. I don't go in every day. I live here. Why would I? But yeah, that's I think it'd be a wonderful thing. Alex.
All right. Well, I would probably leave my non-existent car at home. I myself don't drive, so in all seriousness, it would be something that I would use when I do need to go into town. I think John hit it just really kind of on the head there with making sure it has good connection options on the other side. Assuming it does, and assuming an accessible landing point is picked, I could see a lot of people using that as a viable means of transportation, not only between Bowen and the city for work, but we could also fill the return trip and relieve the ferry a little bit on the tourism side as well, if needed. Or sorry, not if needed, because it isn't definitely needed, but if the timing worked out well for that as well. So yeah, definitely would be for it. Can I bounce this over to Andrew?
Sure. It's a helpful reminder for me to take myself off mute. I think a passenger ferry is definitely needed. I think one of the big casualties of the pandemic was the dissolution of the Bowen Island Transit Society and the loss of Peter's Bus and the linkage of water taxi, particularly for commuters, which has then also been exacerbated by in the summer as the ferries become more and more irregular. I think it's very difficult for commuters and folks leaving families and trying to get home to families to be on a regular schedule. So I think some kind of commuter solution, and I say solution because I think it's wider than just a ferry. I think we need to be looking at our bus options on the other side of on Horseshoe Bay as well, and then our TransLink options on the island, so that we can move towards both some better climate impact of transportation, both on the island, off the island, getting to the city, but also more accessible transportation for anybody that wants it, whether it's our residents or tourists. And I will send it over to, who hasn't gone yet? John Turner. John Turner. I feel like I'm always sending it over to you.
Yeah. Well, that's okay. I think marine access is one of the most underutilized resources in Vancouver, Bowen, everywhere. I bought a powerboat about 12 years ago now, and there's some free moorage at Granville Island. There used to be some downtown, which they've now closed, and I think there's 4 or 5 slips in Lonsdale. It's just, I mean, it's a hugely underutilized resource. So yeah, I mean, I basically, when I needed to commute over the last 10 years, I was using my own boat, and you save time, you live a lot lower stress life. I mean, we keep the car in Horseshoe Bay, so that's where we would leave from. But I mean, there are other options. There's Sunset Marina up the coast. There's Eagle Harbor Marina. I know someone that commutes from there. Even used to be someone that commuted in from Falls Creek every day, just in a personal boat. So, I mean, if there's a water taxi, I think it'd be fantastic. I know the services were used quite quite aggressively, or is the right word, but to get downtown. I think English Bay Launch found that they could go to Granville Island, Falls Creek, Granville Island. And one of the hooks there was that you could park your car overnight. So you had free parking at Granville Island. You get in the water taxi, you get to Bowen, and you get back again without incurring parking charges. So yeah, I'm a huge fan of it. Over the years, there have been a number of services that have tried, and they usually run for about a week and then stop.
Yeah.
I mean, because it is hard to make money at it. Traveling by water is not as pleasant as it seems in the winter, especially. It can be dangerous, and so I mean, it has to be handled right. But I think if we do have a water taxi, maybe we should look at some of the local parts of, or like Eagle Harbor actually as an embarkation point, as well as Horseshoe Bay. I mean, it's not quite as convenient, but you reduce traffic congestion in Horseshoe Bay.
Yeah.
And
I'm gonna pause you there because we're well past the point there.
Well, it's boats. I got to talk about boats. But I was referring to it as sanitation, as a reference back to the sandy boats, where there were multiple points along Bowen where people could get to. So, anyways, I'll shut up now.
So that's everyone with a question. Maybe there are a couple of comments in the chat. Let's maybe do a lightning round of some of these questions. Maybe we'll go. What do you want to do? You want to go 15 seconds, 30 seconds and answer?
Yeah, keep it short.
How short? How short, John? You choose 15 or 30 seconds.
20.
20 seconds. Nice.
I'm a compromiser.
Okay. So one that it feels like any candidates meeting would not be complete without asking, from Jenny here in the chat. She says, may I ask about the possibility of a campground on Bowen Island? I would like to know the candidate's view for or against.
Well, candidate John then will start and say, I have no issue with campgrounds as long as we properly organize how we're going to get people to them and how we're going to regulate them and make sure that they, they don't burn things down and don't leave trash, and who's going to manage the campground, who's going to enforce the regulations, that kind of thing. Camping on the surface, great idea. It's a good approach.
All right. Who do you want to send it to?
John Turner.
Oh, I'm a fan of small footprint camping. I think that could work. And I reference Plumper Cove on Keats. It's a small water access only campsite. It basically fits all the marks that John talked about. It's manageable. It's small. It's non-intrusive. I mean, I think we could handle that without too much grief. I mean, again, the park, it starts to become a safety issue. If you can't keep the park safe, you can't keep the users safe, then there's no point in doing it, or the campground safe. That's what it comes down to.
All right. Who do you want to send it to?
How about Tim?
So I think it comes down to walk-in camping or boat-in, and I presume the examples that have been suggested, it was boat to shore and then walk to where you're camping. So we have to get cars completely out of the equation because we've already got too many cars. So and obviously it would be more manageable if the campground could be closer to the cove. And I think there are some options for that.
Send it.
Yeah. Oh, Robin.
Well, I prefer no campground, park protection, but if we do have to compromise with a campground, I like the idea of a more marine park like Galliano or other Gulf Islands have some great marine parks. I think infrastructure is an issue. So, ferry, all of that, and management. I'll send it to John Turner. Have you done?
I did mine already, but
Oh, did you?
yeah, no,
Sorry, go
actually, I just want to echo, Dionisio Point is the one in Galliano, which basically got me looking at or thinking about Plumper Cove on Keats. They're very similar parks.
Right.
Yeah, but how about Alex?
Yeah, we'll
You
pass
said
it,
it-
Alex.
Yeah.
All right. So I think that I would only support it if it was the right fit for Bowen. I think we need a lot more looking into it to see if that's the case, because huge issues of infrastructure and management that would need to be addressed even to have it in the first place. But again, what does the electorate want? Does the electorate actually want a campground here? And even looking at that question first before proceeding down the rest of seeing the infrastructure management is probably, I think, the best thing we can do at this point, given the short timeline that we're working with. So the other thing I did want to say was a little bit different from the others' points about the no cars. I'd say cars only in the context of accessibility for those who do require them, say wheelchair users, et cetera, but other than that, I think cars need to be entirely out of the equation if we are to have a campground. But again, I'll reiterate that it's only if that's what Bowen wants as a whole and if it's a good fit.
Yeah, good
The
point.
campground as a whole, that is, sorry.
Good point
And-
about the cars and accessibility, but I think the answer to that might be a shuttle.
It might be, but it depends if that shuttle can actually address the accessibility needs that it would be being brought in to fill. So I'll pass it over to Andrew.
So I like the idea of it becoming parkland before anything else happens. We need solid and in the ground commitments for things like transportation on the island, for whether it is accessibility, what camping looks like, what the traffic on White Sails looks like, and what type of camping it is. That's my 20 seconds. Next lightning round question from Betty Morton. Sometimes it feels like the same folks sit on the same committees forever. Would you consider emptying the committees and starting over with a new call for volunteers? Let's start. Robin smiling at this one. So let's start with Robin.
I agree. There used to be a term limit. And it used to be 3 years. I think that could be less. And I personally would agree with Betty. I think we could start all over. There was a committee review. Don't know what happened to that.
All right.
Pass it to John Saunders.
It's an interesting concept because most jurisdictions that you deal with, you can't get people to serve on committees. So the concept of thanks, see you later, and getting somebody else is kind of new to me. But fresh blood is always a good thing, and maybe each committee could look at it itself. You mentioned a review. That's probably a good plan. Then if things are getting stale, we should probably address that. Yeah. John Turner.
I mean, I'm a big fan of continuity of service and not forgetting past decisions, all that stuff. But I would say, yeah, it wouldn't be a bad idea to start fresh. Maybe not just with the same old committees, maybe retarget the committees, try to make them a little more effective. And then get the same volunteers back for the new committee. So,
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, ultimately it will happen. And again, you don't want to lose the experience, or you want to be able to draw from the experience of the people that have been there. But yeah, if it's the same ideas on the same committees, well, it might need time, or it might be a good time for a refresher. How about Andrew? Over to you. So,
I would worry about turning over a whole bunch of new committees when we're turning over a whole bunch of new council. I'd also like to look at, what conditions need to be in place to bring in new members to committees and members from underrepresented demographics on Bowen Island, so that we have that organizational history, but we're also bringing in new people. And I will send it over to Alex.
Okay, I'll build on what Andrew was saying. Definitely a big transition like that could have some drawbacks. One thing that could be interesting is figuring out how to bring in new blood, incentivizing it, but also pairing people up with people who have served on committees before. I think a lot of people are hesitant to do it because they don't understand what's involved in it and don't have the knowledge of how a committee works. So having a bunch of fresh committees could suffer from that problem as well. So I think that transfer of knowledge, but maybe perhaps setting a limit to that, how long that process would take. But that's it, only if there's enough people to even bring new blood in. At the moment, I think there's a lot to be gained from the experience of the people who have been there as well. So I think it's one of those questions. So we can look at that review and see what results, if any, came back from there first before making a decision on this.
Yeah. Cool.
And I'll send it over to Tim.
Yeah, I think turnover would be good. I agree with everybody on the wholesale change. Probably not a good idea, especially with a new council. But staggered term limits work really well, and that if it's 2 years, and then you can also have after 2 years they can apply again, and I think that would help keep things fresh. And as far as the experience goes, every committee I've been on, there's always been some people on the previous committee that I could consult with and get ideas from. So it's not like they're gone for good.
So, folks, I think it's 10 o'clock. We've been going for 90 minutes right now. This seems maybe like a good time to break off. Everybody
Yeah.
cool with that? So, folks who are watching, we peaked at about 35 or 37 people there, I think. There were lots of questions posted to the Facebook post of this event that we didn't get to, and I think there's lots of people who are interested in answers on those. We got everything from questions about seniors to development cost charges and questions about daycare. I'd encourage us in this group to head out and maybe pick one or two of those and give those an answer. I've got a 4-year-old who's about to barge in here. I think he's out of bed. But thank you to everybody who watched. On Facebook, on the Everything Else in the Candidates profile, there's contacts for everybody here. If there was something that you wanted to follow up on with people, I would encourage you to reach out. And I just want to thank the people that are watching for participating. I know that it's not always easy to do in these busy lives that we lead, and I want to thank all the candidates who showed up. This has been a real busy time for us, and maybe we'll just check out with one word. One word. How are you feeling right now, Tim Wake?
Ready for bed.
John Saunders.
Enthusiastic.
Robin Berger.
A little tired.
John Turner.
oh, sleepy is a good one.
Yeah. And Alex J.
Excited?
Excited. Yeah. I'm excited. We're almost at the end of this, and it's been really great to meet you guys and know you guys and ladies as well. So we'll see you soon. Thanks, everybody.
Hey, thanks.
Thanks.
Thank
Appreciate it.